Today I am going to be building the perfect SummerSlam card. SummerSlam is about 2 weeks away, so I went back through the catalog and have decided on an 8-match card to build my perfect SummerSlam. I do have some guidelines I must follow, with the first one being that it must be an 8-match card. My second guideline is, of my 8 matches, only 4 of them can be championship matches. And those 4 championship matches must be a World Heavyweight Championship, a Mid-Card Championship, a Tag Team Championship, and a Women's Championship. And then my last guideline is that whatever my opening match is, it must have been an opening match on a SummerSlam card. And then the same thing for my main event. Whatever my main event is, it must have main evented a SummerSlam card. So those are my guidelines. And at the top, I'll just say that Bret Hart made this very difficult. He has, if Shawn Michaels is Mr. WrestleMania, Bret Hart is Mr. SummerSlam. The amount of great matches he's had in SummerSlam history is staggering. He had an Intercontinental match that main evented a SummerSlam that made it difficult to choose. He's had a World Heavyweight Championship that was not in the main event of SummerSlam that made it difficult to choose. He's had other great IC championship matches. He's had other great World Heavyweight Championship matches. He's had great tag team championship matches. Any kind of match you can think of, Bret Hart has had at SummerSlam, and most of them have been outstanding. So he is the wrestler who made this the most difficult to choose based on having to follow the few parameters I've given myself. But I have decided on an 8-match card, so let's just jump right into it. My opening match is going to be Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio from SummerSlam 2002. And you will not start off a pay-per-view better than this or hotter than this. This was an outstanding match. It was only 9 minutes long. It was fast-paced. It was action-packed. And I also want to have some shorter matches, because I am going to have some matches on this card that are pretty long. And me personally, I think if you have every match on your card being a 20-minute classic, I think that takes away from the great matches. I don't want an 8-match card with every match going 20 plus minutes. That gets old to me quick. So I wanted to have a mixture of length of matches. So this is one of my shorter matches, but it does not take away from the quality of this match. It is outstanding. If you give Kurt Angle 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, however long you give Kurt Angle, he's going to make it a classic. That's just what he does. And this was no different. It was an outstanding match and one you must watch. Kurt Angle was victorious here. Again, it was only 9 minutes long, but it is a must-watch match in my opinion. It is a hot way to start off a pay-per-view, and it is my opening match. My second match is going to be Edge and Christian defending the WWF Tag Team Championships against the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys in a TLC match from SummerSlam 2000. And if I'm building a perfect card and there was a TLC match on that card in its history that included the Hardy Boys, I'm going to pick it. This was my childhood. Hardy Boys were my favorite professional wrestlers growing up. I loved absolutely everything they did. I loved the TLC matches. I know some people may dislike them, people may love them. Me personally, I was a child. I absolutely loved them, and they're one of my favorite matches growing up. So I'm always going to choose that. I'm always going to choose a Hardy Boys match as my tag team match if they have a classic match, and this certainly was one of them. Just absolutely love the TLC matches growing up. So that's my pick for my tag team championship match. Edge and Christian were victorious here. They did successfully defend the tag team championships. My next matchup of the evening is going to be AJ Styles versus John Cena from SummerSlam 2016. And again, I can only have 4 championship matches, so I want some of my non-championship matches to be great matches and to have some meaning. And I think this is both of those. It was a classic in the ring, and it had some meaning to it because it was like the face of TNA versus the face of WWE. Many people thought, me as one of them, never thought I would see AJ Styles versus John Cena. And it happened, and it was outstanding. And this was also in the time period when, for whatever reason, John Cena was, I guess he was trying to prove to people that he can wrestle or that he can do the things that these other people can do. So he was breaking out like springboard stunners and code reds and all the stuff you never really seen Cena do. There was like a three-year period in his career where he was kind of just breaking that out. And this was in that time period. It was an outstanding match. AJ Styles was victorious, and that is my third matchup. My fourth matchup of the evening is going to be Alundra Blaze defending her WWF Women's Championship versus Bull Nakano from SummerSlam 1994. And I needed a women's match, and I've always just liked the look of Bull Nakano. And this was a solid match, and for the time period, an outstanding match for women's pro wrestling in the WWF. I didn't want to have... So some of the more recent women's matches that I would say are of higher quality, a lot of them go really long, like 15, 20 minutes, or they opened the card, and I wanted Ray versus Kurt as my opener, and I didn't want to have one of my women's matches be 20 minutes long just because of some of these matches I have coming up that are really long. And again, I kind of wanted to have some different lengths. Didn't want every match to be super long. This was 8 minutes and 10 seconds, but it was a real solid matchup between the two. And a women's match that I wanted on my card, and it is my women's championship match. Alundra did successfully defend here, and she retained the WWF Women's Championship. My next matchup is one of the reasons why I had to keep things shorter in some of these matches, and that was Shawn Michaels versus Triple H in an unsanctioned match from SummerSlam 2002. And like I said, this was one of the matches that went kind of long, as does everything that Triple H pretty much does. But it was outstanding. It was a match that stood out to me in my childhood. I remember like the build up to this with the like grainy security camera footage where they revealed like Triple H was the attacker of Shawn Michaels. I remember like the build up to that like for weeks and finally revealing who it was going to be. But I remember as a kid seeing that footage and thinking like, oh, who could this be? Who could this be? And then finally it was revealed that it was Triple H. This was Shawn Michaels' return match to the WWE, and it was an outstanding match. I also love the fact that Shawn Michaels wore jeans and boots here. I personally think that adds to an unsanctioned match. I wish anytime there was like a street fight or a lights out match or a unsanctioned match, whatever it may be, whatever they're announced, especially in AEW, I'm always hoping that someone is going to come out in jeans and boots and not in their ring gear. And it never happens, but Shawn Michaels did it, and I thought it added to the match. But this was a great matchup. Shawn Michaels was victorious here. After he did win, though, Triple H did attack him with the sledgehammer and kind of just continued on with their feud. Yeah, that's my fifth matchup of the evening. My next matchup of the evening is going to be my Intercontinental Championship match, and it is going to be the Honky Tonk Man defending his IC title versus the Ultimate Warrior at SummerSlam 1988. And this is another match I went short with, but it is probably the best use of the Ultimate Warrior. Honky Tonk Man was supposed to face Brutus the Barber Beefcake here, but in the lead up of the event, he was attacked by Ron Bass, and they showed the footage of this. They had it censored, but it wasn't really censored. They just had like a big red X over the screen and it said censored, but you can basically see everything that was going on. But he was left bloody. He was like dragged through the ring, and it looked like a real good beatdown. I never seen the full footage of that, but it looked like a solid beatdown. So that eliminated Beefcake from the Honky Tonk match here. So Honky Tonk had an open challenge for his IC title, and I'm always a mark for open challenges. I always love the surprise. So that's another reason why I kind of went with this. And the person who answered the challenge was the Ultimate Warrior, and he came out to a huge pop, insane reaction, beat the Honky Tonk Man in 31 seconds to end his longest IC title reign at the time in WWF history. I can only imagine what would happen in 2026 if the longest reign in history was ended in 31 seconds. The internet would have a meltdown, but that wasn't the case here. It was probably the perfect use of the Ultimate Warrior. You had his entrance with the huge pop. You had him shaking the ropes. You had him squashing someone in 30 seconds to become a new champion. Victorious. rope shaking, entrance, anything you would want from the Warrior. Later on in the show, he had one of his like nonsensical promos. So basically everything you could ask out of the Warrior with as little wrestling as possible. Probably the best use of him, and that is my IC Championship match. My next matchup is going to be another long one, which is why I went short with Warrior there. It's going to be Bret Hart defending his WWF Championship against Owen Hart in a steel cage match at SummerSlam 1994. And this is probably my favorite steel cage match ever. Again, choosing what to do with Bret Hart was difficult here. He had the IC title match that main evented against Davey Boy Smith at Wembley, but I didn't want to have the IC title be defended after the World Heavyweight Championship match. I don't like when that happens. So I didn't want to choose that as my main event, even though I think that might be my favorite main event. Then Bret also had a great IC title match with Mr. Perfect. I kind of wanted to choose that as well. But I settled here. I settled on him defending the WWF Championship against Owen Hart, which I just think is awesome to see. Bret facing Owen, facing his real life brother in a huge spotlight match for the biggest prize in pro wrestling at the time, the WWF Championship. And it was just an absolute classic match. Again, probably my favorite steel cage match ever. Maybe my favorite even just steel structure match ever, including like Hell in a Cell, Elimination Chamber, War Games, whatever it may be. It was just a classic match. Bret was victorious here. He did successfully defend the WWF Championship here. And yeah, that's my World Championship match. And then my main event is going to be the mega powers of Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan with Miss Elizabeth versus the mega bucks of Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant with Virgil and Bobby Heenan and the special guest referee of Jesse Ventura from SummerSlam 1988. So all the bells and whistles here, all the names, all the star power. It would have felt wrong to not have Randy Savage or Hulk Hogan on my SummerSlam card, and it was kind of tough to find where I should use them. Because to be honest, a lot of the earlier SummerSlam main events I wasn't a big fan of, but I definitely wanted Hogan and Savage on my card here. And then again with like the Bret and kind of deciding where does he fit in. I thought this was the best use of Hogan and Savage. This is the ticket seller. Having Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ted DiBiase on the marquee, on the posters. This is gonna sell tickets. This is marquee. This is big time. Some of the biggest pro wrestling names in history. It was nothing special of a match. They did come out to Pomp and Circumstance, which is one of my favorite entrances in pro wrestling history. So that adds to it for me personally. But the biggest takeaway from the match was probably just Miss Elizabeth taking her skirt off to distract DiBiase and Andre so that Hogan and Savage can get the win here. For the 1980s, pretty risque, I should say, not risky. Wasn't risky at all. It actually was helpful, but pretty risque for the 1980s. And that was like the biggest takeaway from the actual match. The Mega Powers did win, and then after the match, they kind of slightly planted seeds to the dissension between Hogan and Savage. Hogan was celebrating with Miss Elizabeth. He had her in his arms in a hug, and Savage was on the turnbuckle celebrating. When he came off, he kind of stuck his arms out to give Elizabeth a hug and kind of side-eyed Hogan for holding up Miss Elizabeth. But yeah, this was just the star power, the having Hogan, the having Savage. Then you get Andre and DiBiase as well to kind of be the headliners of this. I think if we were going to have a main event that is a non-championship match, you need these larger-than-life people, and Hogan and Savage are absolutely those. Andre is absolutely that. So I think this is a fit-in main event, being that Bret and Owen were my semi-main with the WWF Championship on the line. I think this is probably one of the only main events that could main event over that, and that was my choice. So that's my card. My perfect SummerSlam card is going to be Kurt Angle defeating Rey Mysterio at SummerSlam 2002. Edge and Christian successfully defending their tag titles in a TLC match against the Hardys and Dudleys from SummerSlam 2000. AJ Styles defeating John Cena at SummerSlam 2016. Alundra Blaze defended her championship against Bull Nakano from SummerSlam 94. Shawn Michaels defeating Triple H in an unsanctioned match from SummerSlam 2002. Warrior defeating Honky Tonk Man in 31 seconds to become the new IC champ at SummerSlam 88. Brett defending his WWF Championship versus Owen in a steel cage at SummerSlam 94. And then my main event, the Mega Powers, Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan defeating the Mega Bucks at SummerSlam 1988. So that's it. That's my card. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what I missed. What would make your perfect SummerSlam card? Again, there were so many other choices I could have chose. It was difficult just settling on 8 and kind of fitting those parameters. But that's what I came up with. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you in the next one.